Okay, welcome student to the lecture of diversity in the living world. The first chapter is living world of 11th syllabus. So let's begin. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is simply living variety, living organisms variety. So the number and types of organism are present on earth is called as biodiversity. Very simple. Number can be a population number or species number. Types of organisms means specifically it is a species. Okay. So only one type of organism will be present in a species. Such species identified by humans are 1.7 to 1.8 million. What they do in DPP is in the question they ask, they change this into billion or lakh to make a silly question of unit conversion. So mindful of that. Next, we have to see how they go about and search an organism and do the taxonomy of it or characterization. First step of the taxonomy we can call it characterization. So simply characterization here is understanding of characters, what kind of characters the organism is having. So we can go with the external structure or internal structure. This external structure is very popular in early on because it's related with morphology. Morphology again, it is a study of external features. Internal structure is nothing but anatomy. Internal structure after taking transverse section, longitudinal section, and then we have structure of cell. It relates to cell biology. That is, when the microscopes were invented, the fine structure of cells they were studying. And developmental process. This developmental process, again, the developmental process is embryonic development or from fertilized zygote to the mature form. These are also characters which can be considered early on. And finally, the most important, ecological information. So what is the ecological information, may you ask? So ecological information means whether this is a producer. Producer means whether this is a autotrophic producer, right? Photosynthesis they will do, or chemosynthetic bacteria, they will create biomass by uh, certain reactions, and photoautotrophs do it by photosynthesis. So is it a producer? Yes. Or is it a herbivore like deer and cows? They will be called as primary consumers. They will be called as primary consumers. And those who eat these herbivores can be called as secondary consumers or carnivores. So that is the ecological information. What role the organism performs in the nature, in the ecosystem is called as ecological information. All these things together are called as characterization. You take an organism, you characterize it. So external, internal, and structure of cell, developmental process, and ecological information. Next. So first we do the characterization. In next stage, we are going to do, that is, identification. Okay. So next stage we are going to do, that is identification. Here the organism is described correctly and attached name is known. Nothing. When you characterize an organism, you are obviously going to identify it. You are going to identify the describe, and then the description is used. What is the description is going to be? Again, it is going to be the characterization. So generally these two steps are one, characterization and identification are similar. Identification is also used whether this organism has previously any name, local names, then this attached name is known. That is called as local name, vernacular name. That changes from place to place. Next, finally, after going to characterization and identification, what remains is the nomenclature. You need to have a proper standardized name which should be unique and universally accepted. So mango can be called as whatever in different languages, but everyone on earth scientifically have one name, that is Mangifera indica. So this name is standardized, unique and universally accepted. Go in the any corner of the earth, you can see Mangifera indica is going to be mango. Okay. Next is going to be classification. So what is classification, you must ask. Now after characterization, identification and even nomenclature, we need to group this organism in a particular category. So this grouping is called as classification, and it is based on easily observable characters for basic taxonomy, and for modern taxonomy we can take cell structure, internal, external, ecological information and all. So there are actually two types of taxonomy. So these categories are called as taxa. These categories are called as taxa. This is a simple grouping of organism. Next, going back to the nomenclature, that is naming system. Various naming systems were developed. One of the famous naming system is binomial nomenclature. This binomial nomenclature was given by Carlos Linnaeus, who was a Dutch scientist. He had some name, that is Carl von Linné. Then he Latinized his own name. So he became Carlos Linnaeus. So he gave rules for the classification, and two bodies, international bodies were formed, two codes. One international code for botanical nomenclature and another one is zoological nomenclature. So pay attention, ICBN, that is botanical nomenclature, ICZN, that is zoological nomenclature. Remember, just this is a remembering data. Sometime in options they confuse student. ICBN, instead they will place ICNB. So ICNB is international code for nomenclature of bacteria. It's not present in NCERT, but it will be present in option as a deceiving option. So pay attention, it is going to be BN, not NB. This one is Carlos Linnaeus. Okay. Next. So next we come to the very important point of this living world, that is classification and taxonomy. The process of classification based on characteristic is called as taxonomy. Remember this definition. Process of classification is also called as taxonomy, and systematic arrangement of organism after that classification is also called as taxonomy. These two definitions are very important. So what is the basic taxonomy? So if you are going to ask what is the basic taxonomy considers characterization based on easily observable characters. Then again identification, nomenclature and classification. If you want to remember the sequence of this, very easily you can remember the sequence. Just remember the characterizations CH, identifications I, nomenclatures no, and classifications cla. So it becomes chinocla. Okay. So it becomes chinocla. You can remember chinocla. CH for characterization, I for identification, and nomenclature and classification. Very easy. So again, the basis of, remember this, modern taxonomy's basis is external structure, morphology, internal structure, anatomy, cell structure, that is biology, cell biology, and developmental process, development from zygote to mature forms, and finally ecological information, as we discussed before. So this is taxonomy. Taxonomy, again, if you want to see what is taxonomy, process of classification and systematic arrangement of organisms. Then the new term comes, very important term, and generally MCQ are asked in this chapter based on this. So systematics is a term given by Carlos Linus in the book published, that is Systema Naturae. They ask this. Okay. So Carlos Linus, Systema Naturae, systematics, they ask this. Suffering from cold in the first lecture. Okay, so taxonomy plus, that is taxonomy again. Systematic arrangement of organism is called as taxonomy. We have earlier seen this. And evolutionary relationship. If you add characterization, identification, nomenclature, and classification, plus if you add evolution to that or evolutionary relationship to that, this is called as systematic. Systematics is based not only on taxonomy but also evolution. So in that evolution, the names will be changing. Evolutionary relationship, sometimes they will called as phylogenetic relationship, or even they can call interrelationship. So remember this while solving the MCQs. Very few important MCQs are there. If you attempt that and if you go through this, nothing much remains in this chapter. This is the book by Carlos Linus, Systema Naturae. Okay. After that, we are going to go into taxonomic categories and hierarchies. So, lowest hierarchy is species. Lowest hierarchy is species. Okay. Lowest hierarchy is species, and highest one is kingdom. Lowest is species, highest one is kingdom. Everybody knows this. This is very easy. So simply, this domain is not part of R.H. Whittaker's. That is a scientist, it will come up. So let's start with the King Philip came over for good soup. This is a mnemonic to remember. It is a common mnemonic, not mine. So highest is going to be kingdom, lowest is going to be species. When you come from kingdom to species, that is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Similarly, instead of phylum, at the same level, at the same taxa, division is there for plants. That is just a difference for botany. So simply you can add King Philip came over for good soup. Very simple. And instead of Philip for phylum, you can use Dilip for division if you want special mnemonic. Okay. So simply King Philip came over for good soup. So we need to see the trend, how the similarities are where most and differences are where most. So species is going to have most similar candidates. Individuals in the species taxon is going to be highly similar, and when you go up, the similarity decreases. Simply see this arrow, similarity decreases from species to kingdom, and when you go, same thing can be said from a different point of view, that similarities increase when you go from kingdom to species. This is an important thing. Huh? So this is a group of close knit people, similar individuals. Then again, many groups, many species comprise genus, many genera comprise family. So what is happening? The differences are increasing and similarities are decreasing. One question will be asked based on this. So pay attention here. These three lines summarize every type of question it can be asked. From species to kingdom, what is increasing? The similarity, which is also called as common characters. Then they will not ask you similarity or differences in such common words. They will ask you common characters. What are common characters? And they will ask you general characters. So common characters are similar character. From species to kingdom, if you go, they are going to decrease. And general means generally these are different characters. So species to kingdom, These general characters will increase, differences will increase. Remember this, and based on topic, each and every question can be solved. Okay. So I hope it's clear there. Moving on. Next is, first one is species. So what is a species? When you talk about what is a species, this is a natural population of individuals able to interbreed freely and produce fertile offspring. So it is a natural population, interbreed freely and produce fertile offspring. So this is a definition of species. These are the individuals of a natural population. So when we talk about species, species is very meaningful and real. What is happening? It is the smallest and lowest taxonomic category. Okay, but it is a basic unit of life. Basic unit of classification, and also it is one of the real category. What do you mean by calling real categories? Species is naturally present. Human species, plant, mango species, any plant species you are going to go with. It is a real group. It is not constructed by human beings, but genus, family, all these are constructed. So the real lowest, smallest group is species. Next. So there was once a time that there was a problem of called as definition of species. Definition of species was mostly debated by various scientists. So what is the exact definition of species? So earlier we had a taxonomic concept. So taxonomic concept is very similar. What is taxonomic concept is saying? What is mean by morphologically distinct? So morphologically distinct means the particular group should have external features which should not match to anyone but among themselves. This is one way of saying that. Another way of saying that is it is a group of individual organisms. It is a group of, again, individual organisms with fundamental similarity. One way you can define it like that, it is a morphological distinct. That means it is similar within them but different from all other. Or you can call it a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities. Okay, next. But what happens due to this definition failed due to the various examples in nature, because sometimes though they may be morphologically distinct, that is fur color in organism, that generally changes. So but they still can produce organism. So many times this rudimentary species definition created problem. Now we are going with the biological concept of species, and this problem, the definition or the concept of species, was solved by Ernest Mayr. This Ernest Mayr, he solved the biological concept of species. So he was called as Darwin of the 20th century. So remember this, mug it up. This is going to be on your test or DPPs. Very easy. So Darwin of 20th century is Ernest Mayr, and he gave an definition which holds mostly true in most cases, such as individuals able to interbreed freely. See, this criteria: interbreed freely in nature, in ecosystem, when male and female interact, or the plants, they should be able to interbreed freely. There should not be any problems and produce fertile offspring. Even this can be the most important criteria is fertile offspring. What is a fertile offspring? Fertile offspring means when the offspring is reproduced, it reaches, after that sometime it will reach the sexual maturity and it will become an adult, and this adult should also be able to produce next generation and next generation and next generation. That is called as fertile offspring. That's how a species or group of population can continue up generation after generation, and it should be reproductively isolated. That means they should not take part in cross species reproduction. They should only reproduce within the species they belong. So one of the most important criteria, fertile offspring. Generally mules, now generally mules, what happens with mules is they are produced from male donkey and yes, mules, male donkey and female horse, MDM. You can remember that like this, MDM. Okay, so and male donkey, mule, okay, and female horse. Obviously, male donkey you are going to take female horse. What is produced by them is called as mule. This mule is sterile. It is not able to continue further generation. So again, that's why mule is not a species. That's why mule is not a species. Next, they are reproductively isolated. That is very important, that these organisms, when one species and another species, they are in nature, they are reproductively isolated and able to interbreed freely among themselves. And most important criteria is fertile offspring. If two organisms are able to produce fertile offspring in a natural setting, then they can be called as a species. This was a biological concept of species given by Ernst Mayr, which to whom it was given a title, that is, he was a Darwin of 20th century, because this space concept of species was very important at that time. Next, next is genus. So very simply, it is a group of related species. It is going to from genus to kingdom. If you go, just you if you add group of, you can go one step above. So group of related species is called as genus, but NCERT has added two more lines, which has more characters in common in comparison to the species of other genera. So this becomes little bit what confusing, right? This one is easier. Genus is nothing but the group of related species. Okay, group of genus or genera is called as family. Group of family. This becomes very easier. But what they have added, more characters in common compared to species of other genera. So let's see this with an example. Example is very easy. So we have Solanum genus. We have what? Solanum genus, and another one is Nicotiana or Nicotiana. So we have two these genus, they belong to same family, okay, higher family, that is Solanaceae family. So what is happening in Solanum genus? We have many species. Solanum tuberosum, okay, everybody knows it is a potato. Solanum nigrum, that is black nightshade. In Hindi it is called as mokoi. Okay. Melongena. Melongena is brinjal, eggplant, aubergine, whatever you want to call. It is simply brinjal, melongena. Okay. And then we have Lycopersicum, which is called as tomato. Very easy. So what is happening here, that all these species belong to one genus. They have more common with each other than the genera or genus of other species. Pay attention here. That means these belong to genus, these species belong to genus, potato, tomato, brinjal. They are more similar comparatively. If I'm going to compare this tomato and potato, they are more similar compared to tomato and tobacco. Okay, they are not so similar. More similarity will be at tomato and potato compared to tomato and tobacco. The reason behind this is simply Nicotiana is a different genus, Solanum is a different genus. What they are saying, if you belong to same genus, the species show higher similarity compared to species of other genus. Very simple. Nicotiana genus, we have two, Tabacum and Alata. Okay, next. So, Solanum species have more common characters with each other, that is Solanum nigrum and Solanum tuberosum are more close to each other than Nicotina tobacco. Very simple. Next example. This was an example for plants. Second one is an example for animals. Again here, if you want to say each genus may have one or more specific epithets. Okay. Here specific epithet is nothing but species. Specific epithet is nothing but species. That means genus can be having one species or many species. Does not matter. Representing different organism but having morphological similarity. Same thing we talked about. Potato, tomato, closer compared to the tobacco. Next. So Panthera. Let's begin with the Panthera. So Panthera genus will have Leo. Panthera Leo is a lion. Again, Panthera pardus is a leopard, and Panthera tigris is a tiger. So all these three have more common to each other than to the Felis or Canis. Canis everybody knows. This is a dog family. So Canis familiaris is our domestic dog. Canis lupus is our wolf. Canis aureus is our jackal. So what is happening? These have more common in each other than to this. That is very simple. A lion is more closer to a leopard or tiger than to a dog. Very easy example here. Generally, our domestic cats have 6 species. This is extra. Felis genus and Felis catus is our nothing but the domestic cat. Very cute one.